Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Alicia and today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in March. So I read about 11 books in March, which is honestly a personal best for me, so I'm super happy. It was a great reading month and I read a lot of good books, some great books, and some that weren't so great, so let's get into it. So the first book that I read this month was Cast in Firelight by Dana Swift. And this book was really interesting, really fun, and honestly quite a quick and easy read. So I really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna go too much into the plot and story of it, so I'll just give you guys a quick synopsis. But basically, it's in this magical fantasy world where magic kind of is seen through colors. So basically, each color symbolizes a different kind of aspect of magic. So I think like pink magic is, let's say, like healing magic, and there's like green magic, which is kind of growing things. There's red magic, which is like fire magic, etc. So basically, the most powerful witches and wizards have there's about 9 colors, I believe. So the most powerful are able to master all 9 colors, so all 9 kind of aspects of the magic. So basically we have these two characters, Adra and Jatin, and then as kids they're basically arranged to be married because they're the two royal heirs of 2 different kingdoms. So they're to be married when they're older to kind of unite the kingdoms. But when they meet as kids, they end up kind of starting this rivalry. They don't really like each other. And then when they're growing up, they don't ever really see each other because Jatin ends up going to kind of a boarding school, and so Adra basically never sees him. So they don't really know each other, and then later on when they meet, they basically have this kind of like mistaken identity thing, so they don't really know that the other is the person that they're supposed to go and marry. So they have this kind of enemies to lovers trope, I want to say, but also they don't know each other. So the people that they think they're going to be marrying, they kind of hate that person, but then they end up meeting each other, not knowing who they are, and have this kind of romance that starts, but then they feel like they're betraying the person that they're supposed to be marrying. So I thought that was really fun, and I thought it was really well done, I guess. Also, there's this kind of mystery aspect too, I want to say, because Adra is the creator of this kind of fire that she created herself through her magic, and so that ends up getting stolen. So then she has to go and try to find out who stole it and why, and Jatin ends up helping her without making it known that he's Jatin, if you get what I'm saying. This actually was such a fun story to read though. I think the whole kind of world building, the magic system was really unique. It wasn't something that I've kind of read or heard about before, so that part was really cool. This is not an Own Voices story, but it actually has like South Asian kind of cultural aspects and background and setting, so that was really cool. So I mean, that kind of goes into a separate debate about like, should people who aren't from that culture or aren't like representing that be writing about that. But basically, at the end of the story, Dana Swift, the author, kind of talks about how she is married to an Indian man, I believe. So her children are going to be mixed race, and so she wanted to write a story kind of about what her children kind of like would be going through, or what their life will be like. So I thought it was actually really well done. I thought, coming from a South Asian background myself, there was a lot of words or like the clothing or food, just like the cultural aspects that were really interesting and fun to read. And yeah, I thought she did a wonderful job writing about those things and representing that. So that was great. I gave this book 4 stars. Again, if you're in the mood for something kind of fast, something fun, this is a great book to pick up. So the next book that I read this month was Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this was I was not expecting what this book made me feel, and I didn't really know a lot about the book when I started reading it, and so it was honestly caught me by surprise. I absolutely loved it. Just for a quick synopsis, basically, it's about a young Black girl who is wanting to kind of get into the singing industry. She wants to be an artist, a singer, and so she ends up meeting this older celebrity who she like really looks up to, really admires, and thinks, you know, he's really hot and all of that. So she kind of wants to get with him, but she knows that he's a lot older, and he obviously knows that she's a lot younger. So what ends up happening is it's about basically he starts grooming her and essentially kind of kidnaps her and puts her through so much emotional kind of and psychological abuse. And it was just really emotional and heartbreaking to read. A lot of the kind of later parts of the book when stuff was actually getting really serious. Um, and I feel like it did such a wonderful job about talking about the subject. It definitely does have some triggers, just in the sense of like abuse. There were some kind of I don't want to say violent, but just like be careful if you pick it up, because definitely look into the triggers. But I think Tiffany D. Jackson, this was the first book that I read of hers, and I know that she writes about a lot of like hard hitting topics. So this was definitely one of those. But it was just so wonderfully done. I know like some people don't love it. I know her writing style may not be for everybody. She does do this thing where it's kind of like different timelines, so that part kind of gets confusing. But again, like I think the themes that she talked about, the topics, the characterization, the emotions, like I felt everything that this character was going through. I gave it 5 stars and I highly recommend it. So the next book that I read that I was really wanting to get to was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. So honestly, don't really need to give too much of a background on this story because I'm pretty sure everybody's either read it or at least heard of it. I for sure uh, basically ended up picking this up because I'm super excited about the TV show. I haven't ever read the Grisha trilogy, but I have read the Six of Crows books. So I'm super excited for those books to be like made into the TV show. But I of course wanted to read this, so not only did I know what was going on, but just to kind of get into this world. I think the few things that fell flat for me were kind of the romance side of things. So the romance between Alina and Mal. I think a lot of people might have this opinion, but I did not like Mal. He was just very kind of overprotective. He was very unfair in a way. Like he just wasn't. I just didn't feel like he was a good match for Alina, anyways. But also just as a character, not only was he kind of like annoying, but I just didn't really care about him. I also didn't love Alina, which might be controversial, but I think what it was is just the kind of, I mean, this book really falls into the trope of like the chosen one and like not like other girls type of thing. So like Alina is definitely that kind of character. And I don't think she had enough of a personality for me to kind of root for her. Not saying that I didn't like care, but I just, yeah, I didn't really like vibe with her, I guess. One thing I did love though was the Darkling, which is not controversial because I'm pretty sure everybody loves the Darkling. But I also like, given his name, the Darkling, didn't really click that he would be a villain. So a bit of a spoiler alert, but when that twist kind of happened, I was definitely shocked and wasn't expecting it. So that part I think was really cool. I also love the setting. This takes place in kind of a Russian inspired world, and the magic system also was really cool. I think the idea of the fold and how they're like that being the big bad guy in a way, what they're trying to like fight against, that whole thing was really, I think, unique. But yeah, so it was like a good YA fantasy. I do think this book is more for like younger YA readers. So I for sure think that if I read this book maybe like around the time that it came out, I believe this came out in like 2008 or something, so quite a while ago. So if I read it closer to that time, I might have liked it more. But being like, I think I am a little more older YA new adult type of age group. I didn't love it, but it wasn't bad. Like I know a lot of people hate it and like absolutely don't want to read it. So I didn't feel that. I definitely want to read the rest of the books, which I need to get to in April because I definitely want to finish them before the show comes out on April 23rd. But yeah, it was okay. So another book that I read this month was An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. And This actually might be one of my new kind of favorite reads. I absolutely love this book, and I definitely wasn't expecting that. I didn't really have any expectations going in, so I didn't really know what to expect with Hank Green. This is his debut novel, so another reason I was kind of skeptical, just because of like I didn't know if I was gonna like it, but I genuinely love this book so much. Basically, it's about this girl named April May who kind of stumbles across this huge kind of robotic sculpture in the middle of New York City, and she and her she gets her friend to kind of record her finding this sculpture and talking about it, and that video ends up getting like going viral. And so suddenly April May is like worldwide known, and like this talking about the sculpture, which is a big deal because the sculpture has actually been found in, I think, like something like 64 countries in the world, and it's like a super big global deal. Later on, we find out that the sculptures are actually very likely like alien, an alien invasion, I guess. So like somehow aliens or this extra normal kind of entity has put them here, and they are immovable. They're made from this like really or just like this type of metal that you can't find on Earth. So a lot of things are going on, and April May is kind of in the center of all of it. The story ends up being it is kind of a sci-fi not paranormal, but like a alien type of theme. What I loved about this book was that obviously that's like the issue and what's going on in this world, but it actually ends up being more about how people kind of react to that. So not only reacting to like the event that's been happening, but the fact that April May is kind of just swept into this celebrity status overnight, and how she kind of handles that, and how her friends react to her being kind of famous, and honestly how humanity in the world reacts to this kind of crazy event that's happening. And so I loved the theme. Actually, I did think it was a bit cliche in a way, because it was talking like about how humanity comes together in this kind of crazy moment, or kind of is divided by fear. And so that was like the overarching theme I felt. So bit of a cliche, but I really love how Hank Green wrote about this theme. I think he did like such a fun job and like talked about this in such a new and exciting way. I also think that the writing style was very different, I want to say. It's not something that I honestly would expect in this is an adult book as well, so it didn't really feel that way. So it took a while to get into the writing style, only because it does, the way Hank Green kind of writes this book is very personal, very like intimate, just in the way, because like April May, when she's like talking, you're like right in her head as the narrator, and she has a very specific way of speaking to the audience. So that took a little while to get into. So the character of April May also was a bit up and down for me. So she was actually really annoying, I felt. So it took a little while to kind of understand her and relate to her. But I did feel by the end of it, she was very relatable, which is another reason I love this book. I did think that, like, given the circumstances and the situation that she was in this book, it really kind of felt like how a lot of people would react. And so I thought that was cool, kind of putting yourself in her shoes. And like I felt like I was judging her at the start, but then by the end of it I was like, oh wow, like that makes sense, you know, like all the things she's saying and doing. Yeah, overall I absolutely love this book. I think I gave it a 4.5 stars, and I highly recommend it. I haven't picked up the sequel yet, but I'm super excited to, and I can't wait to get into this series. So another book that I read this month was Gods of Jade and Shadow by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. And this was just amazing. I absolutely love this book. I cannot rave about this book enough. It was so good. So this book takes place in, I believe, the 1920s, Mexico. And so it's about this young girl who has been kind of bogged down by the patriarchy and misogyny all her life. She's been kind of verbally abused by her grandfather and by her cousin. People just kind of walk all over her and use her, and she doesn't really have a voice for herself, until basically one day she accidentally frees the god of death. And so um, the god of death ends up needing her help, and she needs to help him, because if she doesn't, she'll end up dying and he'll end up becoming human. And so it's this like unlikely pairing that goes off on this basically quest to save him and end up saving her. And so this is kind of the first time she's able to like live her own life and be free and have her own free will. So yeah, it's just a great book, just in terms of its like the plot itself was so fun. It was so kind of quick, and like a lot of action was happening, so I absolutely love that. I also love the character, the girl Cassiopeia. She again like has been just completely voiceless for most of her life. She hasn't ever kind of been able to be her own person until she meets this god who actually ends up giving her voice and ends up giving her opportunities and setting her free in a way. And so it was very just it just had a great message, I felt. Also, the romance was so great. I loved it. It basically was between Cassiopeia and the god of death, and their dynamic was just so fun and cute to read. It was a bit of like a snarky kind of back and forth kind of relationship, so I absolutely loved that. It actually reminded me of the TV show Lucifer, if you've watched that, just in terms of like not only it being about like the underworld or a god of death, but also just the relationships that in the TV show that Lucifer has with the detective Chloe. Kind of was the same thing that was going on in this book, so I absolutely loved it. I gave this book 5 stars. I also loved the writing style. It was very just, it felt so easy and fun to read. And, you know, while talking about kind of heavy topics, so I thought that was just absolutely amazing, and I highly recommend this book. You should definitely pick it up. So those are some of the books that I read this month. Thank you guys for watching this video, and please subscribe and like and all that fun stuff, and let me know if you guys have read these books or what you guys thought of them and all that. Thanks guys. See you next time.